I was just reading this morning, Frank, that favorite travel destinations in Latin America are Costa Rica, Panama, and Mexico. How come is that? Isn't that the ram pumping countries?
I think that the original places that were promoted were Costa Rica, places like Costa Rica, and of course Mexico. Mexico has always been sort of the backyard of America, geographically speaking, where it was close. And, it was kind of like made people feel like, well, I can always jump on a plane and in 4 hours I can be home.
There's still more North Americans that live in Mexico than anywhere else in the world.
That's part of it. And then it went down to Central America, and then you got Costa Rica in the 80s, and then it moved to Panama. Panama opened up, and those are all hubs, San Jose, Costa Rica, Panama City. They're hubs that you can fly out of and go to Miami in 3 hours or something. As the promotions branched out over into further south into Ecuador and Peru, the travel started to get more convoluted. They swept it under the rug. The promotions swept it under the rug and made it sound like it's, and sure, if you're in a hub city like Quito and you're just flying to Miami, yeah, it's a short flight. But, if you're flying from some other city in America and then your destination isn't Quito, it's out, somewhere else, then all of a sudden it becomes just a convoluted flight. There's two stories going on here. There's the story that says, oh yeah, it's a short trip. And then there's a story that says, well, maybe not, maybe it's not a short trip. And I know that a lot of people in Cuenca, Ecuador, left Cuenca, Ecuador because the relatives had to get time off of work. And by the time they spent 2 days to get all the way to Cuenca and then 2 days all the way back, they really didn't leave all that much time. They didn't want to spend their whole vacation doing it. So
those are the top destinations. Places like Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, those places aren't as popular for some reason, but they are being,
they're further and further away, see? Yeah, and the travel time is even worse. I think that there's a perception that the travel time is really short, which is not completely accurate. There is some accuracy in some instances, but it's not completely accurate. Are we talking tourism or expats?
From North America, all of it, everything.
Part of it could be weather, the snowbird phenomenon, that taken to the next level, where the snowbirds would get in their travel trailers and go south to South Texas and Florida. Well, if you take it a step further, you can get on a plane and not have a winter. Go to Mexico, go to Central America, South America, and that's the other push. That's the other push. If you travel in the winter from America and go to Europe, it's winter in Europe. So there's this pull.
Yeah, it's starting to get that way.
The pull is for the weather, to avoid the winter. But I will say this about weather. As far as some of the people that are much more north, there was a push in the 80s, a book written by, forget the guy's name, but he wrote Mega Trends. And in those days, there was a big trend happening where people were moving south. And we were part of that. We were in that trend. We moved south. And I'll say, once we moved south, we never shoveled any snow. We had very brief winters, and only about twice in a 17-year period did it ever snow. And when it did, it didn't last more than 2 days.
Well, the sun came out the next morning, and it just melted.
It just melted. So there was never any shoveling. So I don't understand this ram promoted idea that in order to stop shoveling snow, you must go abroad.
They love to use that prose.
Yeah, and you can go abroad for weather all you want. I'm just saying it's not the only option. Plenty of places. Even in Portland, Oregon, when we lived in Oregon, which we lived throughout Oregon, not just Portland, we didn't do any shoveling. I mean, they get their little ice. They get their ice storms, and such, and they get a little bit of freezing, but it's just not the scene there.
I think Panama's bubbling right now. I just am seeing more and more about Panama.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is going to continue because these places, it's not going to stop snowing. Like it or not, there is so much misinformation on the internet, especially on social media, about going abroad that people are just going to keep buying into it and doing it. You know, this idea that Panama is super cheap is something I'm seeing, especially now that it is bubbling again and it is being heavily promoted again. And so now you're seeing again all over, especially in Facebook groups, the idea that Panama is cheap. And I want to talk about briefly, people will tell you that doctor's visits are $15. Well, you know, I can understand if you're coming from a country where the healthcare system is all messed up and the prices are outrageous and everything, and even for just a doctor's visit, it's really high. I can understand how that might sound really enticing. But here's the thing about that. Panama doesn't have a monopoly on that kind of price structure. The healthcare system in America has been out of whack for years, okay, because of certain monopolistic behavior. I'm just saying that the people all over social media saying how cheap it is, and one of the things they're saying is cheap is the doctor's visits. You're coming from a North American country, and you know, you're coming from this monopolistic, just crazy pricing structure. All the rest of the world, just about the rest of the world, okay? Because I don't know, there may be some exceptions. It's going to seem way cheaper. So I'm saying that there's no, you know, it isn't exclusive to Panama. I'm telling you this because you've got these moles all over the internet that are telling you, oh, Panama's super cheap. Well, these guys are there for a reason, okay? So you can go anywhere in Central America, Latin America, Mexico, Europe. You can go anywhere else outside of North America, and the healthcare system is not so predatory like it is in North America. Now, things are changing, and we said that in the other video, so that's good. But I think that people are being preyed upon and being told you got to go to this spot right here, this country to get this.
Well, for that month or 2 months, they do that, and then they do another area.
I'm saying that I just knowing local pricing structures, I can get doctor's visits for $10 in Ecuador. I can even get them for less than $10 in Ecuador. But that's not, you won't get that by listening to gringos on social media.
What I want to know is, what do you get for $15 in a Panamanian clinic, doctor?
What you get is an initial visit where they're just asking you questions and maybe looking you over, okay? So when it comes to actual treatments like dental treatments or anything else, it's not going to be $15, okay? In Latin America and a lot of other countries, the initial visit is designed to be super low so that everyone has access.
The $15 is probably just a basic physical or something.
Just a basic look at you where they ask you what's your problem and what are the symptoms, just initial visit. They aren't going to do anything. I went to a dentist there in Panama and the initial visit was super cheap. But when it came to getting the prices for the work on the teeth, it wasn't really all that cheap. I could get it, I could get the same prices in Europe or even lower than Panama. In Europe or
I know,
or even other places in South America.
I know, I don't know.
I just feel like people are being preyed upon on social media.
And I think the biggest reason that expats, well, North Americans, they're not expats yet if they haven't moved there, but that they focus on these Latin American countries that we brought up, which were Costa Rica, Panama, and Mexico, is because it's less expensive. I don't like the word cheaper.
Yeah, so we said that their focus is the healthcare and the weather, and then that it's overall just less expensive. Our experience is that less expensive is relative depending on where people are coming from and what they're comparing it to, because when we analyze local pricing structures, we find that it's less expensive everywhere we go. Everywhere we have been so far is less expensive than any ram pumped bubble area, but not necessarily less expensive than the States if you are living on a pricing structure of an insider in the States, and that's something we excelled at. I mean, we made a real study of it. But
well, we're doing it in Italy.
But a lot of people don't have the insider view of pricing structures in the States. A lot of people do, but a lot of them don't. And especially a lot of people that are pitched to are from big cities. And this is a big issue because the big cities are more expensive, you know. And so when you're pitting expensive big city North America against any place abroad, I mean, yeah, it's going to appear to be much less expensive. So, but our premise is that it's time to avoid the expat bubble areas because the pricing structures don't last, and it's time to understand that there is an insider way of doing things.
Okay, well, thanks, Frank.
Thanks for watching.
Ciao.
Bye.